Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Phillip Futures webinar. My name is Vincent and I'm your MC tonight. Okay, before I start, I would like to ask that if you can hear my sound loud and clear, so please select yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I will start today webinar. Okay, please have a look on the disclaimer slide. Today webinar is provided to you for general information and does not constitute any recommendation. The webinar just for sharing and education purpose. You may wish to seek advice from a qualified financial advisor pursuant to a separate engagement before making a commitment to purchase any of the investment product mentioned. Okay, so I will start to introduce Phillip Futures. Phillip Futures is incorporated on 7 October 1995 and it is wholly owned subsidiary of Phillip Capital Holdings Sdn Bhd. In Malaysia, total we have 5 branches and our HQ is based in KL. In west of Malaysia, we have branches in Penang, Kota Damansara, Melaka, and JB. In JB, we have two branches. One is Taman Sutra Utama and another is in Taman Molek. While in East Malaysia, the Phillip Investor Center will be at Kuching. And for your information, Cebu branch is Phillip Future new branches. Okay, Phillip Future is a legal license holder, which the license is CMSL. Phillip Future is trading participant of Bursa Malaysia Derivative Exchange and also clearing participant of Bursa Malaysia Derivative Clearing Berhad. Phillip Future is the first broker house in Malaysia to provide the online trading platform for the local and foreign product to our client. Amongst the professional traders in Malaysia, also comment and rank us as one of the top choice of future broking company. In global network, we not just have our company in Malaysia or Singapore. We have office around 15 countries, which including Asian and Western country. Let's see in the world map. In Asian, we have office in India, China, Japan, Vietnam, Cambodia, Australia, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, and Dubai. While office in Western country are US, UK, and French and Turkey. Phillip Future is provide to our client a one-stop solution for their business. The reason is because Phillip Future is offering many types of product, such as index future, we have FKLI, Dow Jones, Hang Seng, and so on. Metal future, we have gold. Agriculture future, we have US soybean oil, coffee, and wheat. Energy future, we have crude oil. And the last is interest rate future, we have US Treasury notes. Okay, how can we offer so many products to you? It is because Phillip Future is subscribing many of foreign exchange. In Asian, Europe, we have Eurex exchange. In Japan, we have Tocom and OSE. Sorry, okay. In Hong Kong, we have Hong Kong exchange. In Singapore, we have Singapore exchange. And Malaysia, we have Bursa Malaysia Derivative. On the other hand, UK, we have ICE, eBoard, NIBORD, and IPE. And US, we have CME, CBORD, COMEX, and NYMEX. Platform and infrastructure that suit your needs. Okay, Phillip Future not just offer many products to our client, we also provide a platform which is Phillip Nova. When you open account with us, Phillip Nova will be offered to you and it is suitable for normal trader. Phillip Nova is available on desktop version and mobile version, and it is web-based. You can see the price list and your order status and the trading position. Besides, you can also see the charting and market news in this platform. With Phillip Nova, you can customize your platform and portfolio, just it is friendly use to those beginner trader. Okay, why choose Phillip Futures? The main reason is Phillip Future is offer you 24 hours broking and execution support. which means we have 9 desks in HQ to support our client even though in the night time. And it is important for those clients who trade foreign product. All you need to do just call to our branch dealing line. Our 9 desks will do their best to provide you our service. Moreover, we will also provide you the latest market news and market analysis by daily sending the commentary via email. And we also provide the advisory service. Okay, thus, you can learn with Phillip Futures, and yes, we provide one-to-one coaching section, and it is free. Let's say if you are new to future market or you are our new client and do not know how to use our platform, we will provide you the one-to-one coaching section. We also have the free seminar and webinar like tonight, and also free account opening. Okay, here is Phillip Futures webinar in July. For the futures webinar, first we have Q3 commodities outlook. Second, we have is about the Bursa Malaysia, FKLI and SCPO. And the third is webinar that related to base metal. For the CFD webinar, it is a webinar series. We had conducted the module 1 introduction of CFD last week. If you want to watch back, you can go to our YouTube channel. And the upcoming CFD webinar, we have module 2 and module 3. Okay, if you want to join our webinar, you can go to the link below and register it in our website. Okay, so now come to the most interesting part, which is Phillip Futures promotions. Okay, for the first promotion is Phillip Future All-Star Reward. The promotion is about Bursa Malaysia product, the Kuala Lumpur Composite Index Futures FKLI, and the Crude Palm Oil Futures FCPO. If you register this promotion, you will have the chance to receive the monthly cash reward up to 588 ringgit Malaysia. For those who yet to become Phillip Future client, here is an additional advantage for you. You can open account with Phillip Future and register this promotion. You have the chance to get one-time cash reward, 50 ringgit Malaysia with T&C. Okay, this promotion period is from 1st June until 31st July. If you are interested to join this promotion, you can scan the QR code or you can visit our website and register yourself there. Okay, for the next promotion is Phillip Futures CFD Bonanza Campaign 2020. If you are interested to trade Malaysia top 100 stocks CFD with lower margin, you can open CFD account with us, okay, and enjoy this CFD Bonanza campaign. Through this campaign, new CFD account open can enjoy free transaction and receive up to 1,500 ringgit Malaysia cash rebate during 15 June to 15 September. CFD Bonanza is also by registration only. To know more about this promotion, you can contact to our hotline. If you want to join this promotion, you can scan this QR code and T&C apply. Okay, other than promotion, another interesting part is Phillip Futures have online account opening. For your information, Phillip Futures is the first in Malaysia to provide futures online account opening. With this online account opening, just stay at home. You can online open futures account with Phillip Futures without visit our branch. If you want to open account, you can scan the QR code here. Okay, next is Phillip Future channel. I believe most of you are familiar with the channel like Facebook and YouTube. Okay, other than Facebook and YouTube, you can also find us at LinkedIn and Telegram. You can search our name in the channel and subscribe us. We will frequently share our promotion, the upcoming seminar and webinars, daily market updates, and the latest market news here. Okay, so this is Phillip Future contact line and email address. Okay, if you want to talk to us, you can call our dealing number. The dealing line is our hotline and it is 24 hours on call. You may also have a look on our web. So here is the web address. Okay, in our page, we will share our company promotion, also our service and many things that related to Phillip Futures. Okay, that's all for the introduction of Phillip Future. So please allow me to introduce our speaker tonight, Mr. Phua Lee Kerk, to you. I believe most of you are known. Mr. Phua is Chief Strategist of Phillip Research Sdn Bhd. He has more than 24 years of financial advisory and portfolio management experience. Okay, today the topic of webinar is economic outlook from BC to AC. So Mr. Phua will share his view about the market outlook and the spreading of coronavirus that affect the second half of 2020. So let us welcome and listen directly from our speaker tonight, Mr. Phua. Hi, Mr. Phua.
Okay, thank you, Vincent. Can you let me share screen?
Okay, sure. Please hold on. Hi, Mr. Phua.
Hi.
Have you received the?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. No. Sorry, I hit wrongly.
I try it again, Mr. Phua.
Okay, just do it again, because I hit wrongly already.
Okay, how about now, Mr. Phua? Is it okay?
Yeah. Okay. 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 Can you all see the screen already?
No, for now, Mr. Phua.
Okay. Can you see now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now can.
Okay. Very good evening to everybody. Well, when I first put it, I put it from the title as from BC to AC, which means that from before coronavirus to after coronavirus. But I think as time passes by, it sounds more like rather than AC, it's more with WC. Of course, it's not toilet, but it's we are entering into a situation is like with coronavirus. So, I mean, to have a look of what will happen to the global economy, first is that we need to understand what the coronavirus has done to the economy. Of course, this disclaimer, technically, it's just saying that from now onwards, you don't really have to believe in what I say, right? Now, so the world that we are in now, I mean, there are plenty of things, and there have been people start to talk about the asset bubbles on the NASDAQ, and then of course we have the pandemic. Trade wars may start to resume again, and so on. Now, the key part that you need to understand is on this coronavirus, what has it caused to the economy, and what has the government done, and what is going to happen into the future. Now, you look into it, actually, this is a very simplified schematic picture of the economy. Technically, I mean, it depends on how you want to start the arrows, the green and the purple arrow. Let's say, for example, if you start from the below, when the firms or the company that provide goods, right, either tangible goods or services, and then the household, of course, either buy or enjoy the services, then pay the money, the company receive the money, and then the company can keep on employ more people, and of course, household themselves are also, technically a labor contribution. So this is how the so-called economy blood circulating. And of course, in between, you have the financial system that provide the funding for the companies, for working capital, for capital expenditure, and for household in terms of buying big ticket items like cars or houses. Now, what damage has this coronavirus done is essentially it breaks off, right, when almost most of the country in the world start to have the lockdown, or people dare not go out onto the street. So technically, the green arrow, both the solid line and the dotted line totally broken, right? When this is totally broken, essentially the purple color line and the line and the dash line also is totally broken. And then because of this, then you have the issue of either household or company may start to face the liquidity issue, and that's where people start worry about the financial system that may collapse. And that's why you see that this round, most of the major government in the world or central banks in the world has reacted very fast in terms of either reducing the interest rate or have a moratorium on loans, or start with all the stimulus package, because in order to avoid the financial system to collapse. Because if financial system also collapse, then technically that's the end of the economy for the whole world. So this has avoided a financial system collapse, right? I mean, because of the central banks and the government in the world. So now the next question is, when will all these, the so-called green arrows and also the purple arrows can start to circulate? It's just like whether the blood can start to circulate or not. And of course, technically, it all ends up with, for the economy to grow, right? We have to monitor, has the world, has people start to move around, has people start to consume. That's where at this moment the big data become a very important situation to monitor the economy, rather to look at of course, I mean, the conventional economy indicator like PMI, like the jobless claims, housing starts, export, import, are also important, but they are technically more of a laggard, and normally it just reconfirm whether economy start to back onto the real or is still on a very, very slow track of recovery. So technically this round, I will spend much less on all these the conventional economy indicators like PMI, like housing starts and all this, but focus a little bit more the so to speak, we call it a high frequency data to understand where are we now. So as what I have shared with you, I mean, for the economy to recover, because coronavirus or this pandemic essentially stop the flow of the economy. People dare not go onto the street, right? All the economy consumption, consumer consumption and all this almost come to a stop. So the most important for economy to recover, and of course ultimately for the market, is that people must start to move, right? People must start to move. There must be movement. So mobility is actually the most important indicator now to gauge whether the economy is on its track or not. And of course, if you look at it today, essentially it has started to recover, right? Unfortunately, I think the chart and all this, you don't see it very clearly because of the compatibility issues on this between the Microsoft PowerPoint and the webinar PowerPoint. So you can't see very clear, but you can, at least you can see the solid blue line, right, is trending up. That is where the positive part now is that people start to move, right? Or rather to say, to certain countries like US or like Donald Trump, right? He's so eager to restart the economy because he knows very well if keep on the lockdown or on a very strict situation where economy can't really resume, then it will be very bad, right? It will create more unemployment. So mobility is the most important part. And at this moment, if we look at the major countries, the G7 mobility actually is already start picking up, although it has not back to where it was before the coronavirus, but it's already approaching to about 70 to 80% of where it is now. And you can see that as people start to move around, that means offices start to open, factories start to run, then you see the goods start to move around. That means the logistics start to move. And that's the reason you can see that the Dry Baltic index has also started to pick up, right? Although it has not really back to where it was, but it is a very clear sign, right, compared to when it first come off. So everything has started to recover slowly. And this is very clear, and we can see that this one is we are comparing between April and May, because June, some of the June data just start to be released. It tells you that the stringency index, which is actually developed by University of Oxford, a measurement of how stringent in the government combating this coronavirus, technically taking into consideration of the lockdown. That means how strict in restricting the people's movement, and how is the healthcare system and all this. And you can see very clear that as the stringency index start to come down, that means government start to reopen the economy. You can see that the PMI, which is the horizontal axis, right, start to improve. You can see it's very clear. I mean, of course, like countries, Italy, France, and even Germany, when they first, including UK, that was hit very badly, right? So after they start to reopen the economy, you can see that PMI start to improve. Of course, this does not mean that everything is good at this moment, because technically it has not recovered back to a level of 50 and above. But it
Hello, Mr. Phua. Hi, Mr. Phua. We cannot hear your voice, Mr. Phua. Please hold on. We are facing some issue. Hello, Mr. Phua. Mr. Phua, we cannot listen to your voice, Mr. Phua.
No, because just now I think I lost the sound.
Yes, Mr. Phua.
Hello?
Now we can listen. Yes.
All right. Okay. Now, if you look at this chart on the left side, you see like a wave type. This we are talking about how the second wave is likely to be and how it affects the economy. Of course, I mean, our base case scenario is scenario 3, where you see that the very strong first wave come in, then after that, the second wave onwards will not be as strong as it is. There's a reason behind which I will share with you. Of course, a lot of people talking about this is a V-shaped recovery, but to me, actually, it's not likely to be a real V-shape. It's more towards of a V. I mean, it start to pick up where the V stop halfway, and then it becomes a little bit, we call it square root. That means it start to curve slowly. The uptrend start to curve slowly rather than a very sharp V-shaped recovery. Of course, the nightmare scenario will be like what you have seen in Iran, where the second wave actually is very strong, which is where you have the it's technically you recover and then you just fall off like L. And U-shape, of course, has been always been mentioned, but I would think that scenario 3, which is not really a V-shape, but so-called a quick uptick, like what we have seen now. Then after that, it will tapering off, so it won't recover back to the pre-coronavirus level as fast as what we anticipate. But it's neither it will be at the bottom for a long time like U-shape, or even the worst nightmare of V combination with L. Now, the key question is the second wave going to be very serious? And will the virus technically almost, let's say, come to a stop during the northern hemisphere summertime? Unfortunately, based on some of the academic research, which is on the left side, you can see on the screen that the academic research has shown that actually, of course, during winter time, right, every 1 degree improve in temperature, that means getting warmer, the number of infections, or the so-called spread factor, will start to come down. But it only reached the bottom at 25.8 degrees Celsius. After that, as the weather getting warmer, actually the so-called infection factor start to pick up again. Although it won't be as strong as what you see during the winter. That means the left side and the right side is not really symmetrical, but it doesn't mean that actually the virus will be almost like disappear or becomes totally dormant during the summertime. So that's the reason why even at this moment, you see, of course, US have their own specific factor, but even like tropical countries, Malaysia and all these, it does not just disappear totally, right? I mean, the number of infection will be reduced. So it is like I say, originally I thought it should be after coronavirus, but it looks like we are with the coronavirus even entering into summer season. And of course, when winters come in again in northern hemisphere, whether this virus will become more infectious or not, we have yet to see. But like I say, I'm more on the optimistic side, is that even the virus is as contagious as what it is now, but I don't expect a very high peak number of infection as compared to the first wave, which I will share with you. The reason is that first, when the first wave hit, right, either you can say that countries like US or Europe, I think originally they think that this is just a China issue, nothing to do with them, so they are relatively complacent, not fully prepared for it. That's why they are very, very badly hit. But with this bitter experience, I'm very sure that all these countries, I mean, of course, even including Malaysia, I think we will be more ready, enhancing the test. That means the testing capability should have improved, that we are easier to identify who has been infected, even including those asymptomatic one, so that we can take a better measures, either to quarantine them or to give treatment to them. That's the reason why I think second wave may not be as bad, or should not be as bad as the first wave, right? And of course, there's also hope on some of the new medicines and all this. Although the clinical test, most of it is not that conclusive, but at least the world, I mean the scientists and then the medical experts are trying to using different medicine to start, at least to make it less deadly as what it was during the first wave. So in that context, that's why I believe that the scenario will be more of a V about halfway. Then after that, it gradually tapering off. It went back to where it was before the coronavirus, before, in terms of the economic recovery. But I don't think it's going to the U shape, unless big countries like US, China, for some reason, right, they becomes a little bit careless in battling the second wave, or the nightmare scenario is that the virus mutated, becomes so toxic that there's nothing much we can do again. But definitely, I would not want to think of that scenario, right? We just pray and hope it won't be that scenario. Now, this one is just a mathematical formula. I think because of the formatting, you can't really see full of it. What we are trying to do is that we try to identify, and unfortunately, you can't see the red line because of the compatibility issue. Actually, there's a red line. We call it K indicator. What it means is that when this line start to show an uptrend, then it tells you that it is the beginning of the so-called second wave that is coming in. Unfortunately, I have to apologize due to the compatibility issue. You can't really see it. And also this one, you can't really see it also. Actually, there are two lines here. The green line you see actually is the stringency index. And you look at China, it has start to move up after the Beijing detected there is a so-called cluster of infection. And that's why, in fact, actually you can see that the K indicator detected the second wave 1 or 2 days after they detected the so-called new infections. Of course, it wasn't able to predict the second wave, but what it's trying to detect is that this K indicator actually can tells you whether is it a false signal, like suddenly Malaysia, for example, there was a day that is like close to 200 over infections. Then after that, it just come off. So it just try to tell you whether there's a false signal or not, right? But when it start to trend up, it's very clear that telling you there is a second wave. And Korea's situation also similarly, really have to apologize due to the compatibility issue. You can't really see the red line, but it's very clear that when there is a second wave start to come in, where the uptick lasted for a few days, the stringency, that means like you remember that Seoul also come into a so-called partial lockdown during the second wave. And Iran is a very typical example, which I wouldn't want to spend so much on that. So back to US, what is the situation now? Again, I really have to apologize because all the chart will get messed up. You can't really see it already. It's very clear. This blue line actually is the mobility. And when the mobility start to pick up, and I think you can, you already read it in the news that like Georgia, like Texas, actually the number of infection has increased a lot, which I think market, whether it's just because of Texas, California, or whatsoever, tonight, US market may take that as a very convenient excuse to take profit. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised that today the market can be relatively weak. But actually, if you look at the US as a whole, I really have to apologize because you can't see anything here. But I mean, if you look at the US as a whole, the K indicator actually is still on a very, very
Sorry, Mr. Pra. We can't hear your voice very clear now. Hello, Mr. Phua, are you on the line?
I think for some issue, I'm on the line.
Okay.
So you can see that the column chart actually tells you that the number of infections seems to be quite strong. You may worry of a second wave, but actually the K indicator show it is a very small gradient uptick, actually telling you that second wave does not actually appear in US yet. really, my sincere apologies because all the chart messed up. Now, this actually is trying to tell you that in terms of numbers of hours the employee work, number of hourly employee worker, consumer spending are all actually trending up. So I have to skip. I think most of the chart you can't see it already. Yeah, all the chart get messed up. Restaurant booking, hotel occupancy, and all this start to improve. But it's very clear it has not back to the pre-coronavirus situation. Okay, and this one is the jobless claim. You all know that actually it has recovered. Really apologize all the chart that messed up. I mean, technically, France, Germany also, you don't see the sign of a second wave. You don't see the sign of a second wave, even though if you look at the right hand side, the right end of Germany, right, the green column, essentially the number of infections actually has increased a lot, but actually it does not indicate that there is a second wave. Just to elaborate a little bit, this second wave calculation actually is based on a so-called quite complicated mathematical formulas that take into the consideration of number of people that are susceptible to infection, number of people already infected, and then the number of people that has infected and recover. So when factor all this into consideration and taking into the 1 week before and now as a geometric series, these are all mathematics. That's how the K indicator works. Just for your information. Similarly, hotel occupancy and then bookings is still all far below the pre the number of infections at that time is still relatively low at around 30, 20 people. So actually the K indicator does tell you that Beijing faced a second wave, and in fact now it's coming down. But I think Beijing's situation is a very clear example to the rest of the world. If you handle the very beginning of the cluster or the new infection carefully, essentially actually you can actually so-called contain the second wave much better as what you see in Beijing now. Since the chart is not that really, so I have to put in my webcam to show a little bit active video. Otherwise, I think you all get lost somewhere. So similarly, this one, although the chart messed up, but if you look at the left-hand side, the purple line, which say the tier 1 city, this is actually the so-called congestion index. And you can see that after the Beijing new infection, the government actually immediately technically have a lockdown, and people in and out of Beijing must be certified that you are, after the PCR test, you are negative. Only you are allowed to move in and out of Beijing to avoid it spread to other cities. That's why the so-called congestion index has come down, right? But it's very different from what you see in Wuhan, where the whole city is in the lockdown. In Beijing now, only the infected district or zone are being locked down. So, I mean, that's why I say the economy recovery is not a full V shape, but with a sharp uptick. But after that, it will start to taper off because coronavirus does not go away with us, and essentially on and off, this type of a so-called partial lockdown probably will happen whether in China, like in Beijing, or even ultimately Malaysia, of course, including US, Europe, Japan, all these countries. So it tells you that economy recovery will not be exactly like a linear recovery that it fall down sharply and then it recover sharply because coronavirus just does not disappear. Now, when we talk about China, there is another issue that people are really worried about, or actually two issues, right? One is the trade dispute with US, and then another one is on the Hong Kong national security law. And politically, I mean, there are a lot of sparks, and for a while, I think people will get worried because if you look at the this CCTV, the China national TV, technically channel 13, on 26th, down there you can see 26th May, Malaysia time 11:35. They have a so-called news commentary, and I mean politically, actually, it's very unbelievable where you have a government TV calling the US leader as a gibbons, you see, right? I mean technically it's orangutan lah. It's like calling Donald Trump orangutan, saying that they are still dreaming on the Hong Kong issue. They thought that they can have an influence. Beijing will change their mind or whatsoever. So yes, all this, I mean, spark a lot of concerns. But frankly speaking, to a certain extent, why Beijing is so adamant on Hong Kong, some of you may have seen this slide last year when there's no MCO physically, you know, in a different in our different branches when I did the presentation. Because you look at the Hong Kong economy compared to the so-called Greater Delta area, actually Hong Kong GDP becomes less significant. So I mean, technically with the Foshan, with Guangzhou and all this, I mean, Hong Kong to China is just one of the not that big contributor to the GDP. That's why to the Beijing government, I think it's more important to maintain, like what Donald Trump has said, in terms of rule and order, rather than let the demonstration and some of the so-called pro-independent factions create more uncertainty to Hong Kong, right? So of course, because of this, during this period when they talk about all these national security law and all this, if you look at the US Congress report, they also mentioned that they can take, you know, abolish any formal treaties or agreements between US and US and Hong Kong. What this means is, I think some of you may heard that US may stop the Hong Kong dollars pegging to US dollar, right? Of course, this is possible, especially and at this moment, all the transactions internationally, right, have to go through the so-called BIS, Bank of International Settlement, where everything that you want to convert to US dollar, or rather to say, for those who are in the banking industry, I think you know very well. Let's say, put it this way, I mean, if there's no back-to-back arrangement, even between Malaysia and Singapore, technically, right, you want to TT money to Singapore, technically, when there's no back-to-back arrangement, actually the ringgit has go to the BIS, convert into US dollar, then from US dollar, then convert back to Sing dollar, then only the money can go to Singapore. So what it means is that's why if US want to sanction any country, immediately they know where the money flow from who and to who. That's why you have the Iran sanction issue, the Huawei issue, North Korea issue, and so on and so forth. And that also brings you to another part why China is talking about the virtual RMB, because that can bypass this BIS. That means China money can flow right freely without being monitored by US. Of course, this is not what we want to discuss today. But technically, that's where the worry that if US want to stop the compatibility, right? Hong Kong dollar to US dollar is very easy and very straightforward. That's why during the news at the peak, you can see that even in the South China Morning Post, right? Some of you may have seen in the news, people are queuing up in front despite the coronavirus, right? In front of all the money changers try to convert Hong Kong dollar to US dollar. And during that moment, actually, again, the chart is messed up, but you can see that somewhere in the center, right, you see there's a spike up on
Hi, Mr. Phua. Hi, Mr. Phua, are you on the line?
Yeah, I'm on the line. Can you hear me?
Now can already. Just now have a bit laggy.
Okay. Okay. So, I mean, just to recap, you can see that there's a spike up on the green line. That is the period in May when the tension or between US and China on Hong Kong issue is at its peak. Even 1 month Hong Kong in the bank interest rate also spike up because there is a lot Donald Trump can back from now until then, but I think it's technically NATO no action talk only because there is still a US presidential election. I don't think he want to have a total so-called face-off and quarrel with China until the election is over and presumably if he's re-elected, right? So at this moment, actually, things have settled down. Now, the next question is very tricky because this actually affects the rest of the world. This one also, you can't really see full details of it. But essentially, I think, the coronavirus and unfortunately also is start foreseen, which for quite a while, I think people have been talking about the trade dispute, whether some of the factories will shift out of China, but it does not really happen, and so on. But with this, because there are a lot of things or goods that you think is nothing, it just costs you less than, in US dollar term, it's only 75 cents a piece of the face mask, right? But unfortunately, 80% of the world face mask is produced by China. So when you're in this situation, actually you have a face mask shortage and all this. So people start to rethink, right? Not even to say that about some of the supply chain, whether some of it has to be back onshore into your home country or at least to the country that is nearby to you. Because don't forget, even let's say the manufacturing country is willing to ship, but it doesn't mean that the planes, the flights, and the sea lane is open because this also come to a stop or a stall during the peak of the coronavirus. So all these factors actually telling you which China is aware that they can't rely so much on export, which is indirectly also telling them that they will have so-called labor excess, right? Labor excess. And this is where you see from the Sanxi Daily, actually it's talking about they are thinking of exporting their labor, right, to other countries. In the 2020, this is the news in the 2nd of June. So they are saying that this year they will export their labor. I mean, whether they can export it or not, we just have to wait and see. But they say that they are going to export their labor to Japan, to Singapore, Israel, Korea, Germany. So what does that mean? If China really doing that, it is going to create not only just a trade friction, but definitely there's a dispute where the so-called the recepting countries, if they ever receive this China labor, themselves also facing that their unemployment issue. So what is telling you that looking forward, especially post-coronavirus, all this is going to be, part and parcel of a lot of cross-border dispute that will create a lot of uncertainties to the economy towards second half of this year. Now, the rest, I say, all the PMI and all this at this moment, they are such a laggard that it does not really give any good indicator looking forward. Because, like I say, the most important is that people must able to move, right? For people must able to move, the next thing is whether there's a second wave and how are you going to contain the second wave. So when we look at Japan, similarly at this moment, although certain big cities like metropolitan Tokyo and all this, the number of infections seems to be relatively a little bit high. Although 30 over 50 people is considered as a little bit high in Japan, but you don't see a second wave yet. That's why they have reopened their economy. Even Disneyland is going to reopen on 1st of July. But unfortunately, I think Malaysians still cannot travel for holiday yet. So similarly for Asia, that's where you can see also when the government start to reopen the economy, PMI will start to improve, right? That's very clear. But one thing you can see that because most of these countries are more on the export oriented, that's why our PMI improvement also is not as strong as what you see in the developed countries. Because put it this way, if the consumption in the developed country has not fully recovered, right, our export, right, for this Asia region, most of the countries, it won't be that strong, right? You will see improvement. So that is one that our view is that in this round of economy recovery, the developed country recovery should be relatively stronger and more sustainable and faster than the Asian countries, right? Similarly, put it this way, because the chart all get messed up, I can only highlight to you is that we don't see technically any second wave in any countries except Philippines, which you see that there are signs of second wave coming in. The countries actually in this chart are essentially Japan, Korea, and then ASEAN 5. So in terms of ASEAN 5, we see that Philippines actually is facing a second wave already, whereas the rest of the countries are still, right? Although you can see that the number of infection a bit high, but it's not really a second wave. Of course, you can argue the other way around is that, for the first wave have not even so-called subdued, right? But anyway, that all these countries has already reopened the economy. So the risk is that at the reopening, if there's second wave coming in, so either they can act fast enough, like what you see in China, in Beijing, only a partial lockdown, it will partially or minimally affecting the economy rather than so if a country cannot have because before, 2 months ago, you remember there's a negative oil prices, economy was relatively slow before the reopening. The rig counts in US have come off a lot. That's why the supply demand getting a bit more balanced in the US on WTI, and then on the Brent and others where the OPEC plus managed to agree at least to cut the production until next month, right? So it brings back to a more balance the supply demand. That's why oil price has recovered back to $40 level, right? And in terms of storage in US, actually the Cushing, the purplish blue line, actually you can see it's coming off compared to during the early part. I mean the later part of April, where it almost reaching the high. That's where you see the negative oil price. So not easy, right, to expect another round of negative oil prices unless you still have some investors are so ignorant that they get the long squeeze like what you see in April, right? Now, I mean, how far the oil price can go, actually, it depends on, again, the chart, you can't really see it. Actually, it's on the G7 plus China. They accounts for more than 46-7% of the world total demand. So you can see that actually the mobility index start to improve, and then economy start to reopen. Even the sea lane also start to improve, as you can see from the Baltic, the Dry Baltic index. So actually the demand start to improve on the oil. That's why you can see oil is hanging at this level, unless the OPEC Plus cannot agree on maintaining, if not cut the production, right, to bring the supply demand more balanced. And one thing, the key decisive factor on oil price actually is on the land transport, right? I mean so actually the land mobility, right? People start moving around, logistics start to move around. These are the key demand, right? Not really on the airline or air traveling. It's more on the land traveling. So the land transport start to pick up. I think it will create a tighter supply demand on the oil price. That's why monitoring the mobility is always the very key, which you can see from both Apple and also Google data. So in US also the petrol consumption has increased. I mean, it's quite straightforward because it technically moved together with the mobility, right? This chart actually, AI again, is technically the oil prices. I mean, when we trace back during the month from around February until middle of May, actually the oil price actually moved in tandem technically with the number of searches, the keyword on coronavirus on internet. So as the search increase, right, the oil price will come down, right? Because when search increase means people are more worried about coronavirus. That means people are less likely to so-called move outside a certain comfortable cocoon, whether it's surrounding your house or whatever. That's why the oil demand, the petrol and other consumption will drop, and that's why the oil prices also will come off, right, when the surge increase. Okay. This one also, I mean, it's technically the price has more or less recovered from the low, the chart. And are they correlated? This chart technically is talking about between CPO and the Brent price. At this moment, it's not that true because technically we all know that Europe is not EU, or rather to say EU is not keen on the CPO as a biodiesel. Okay. Now, these are the comparison. Unfortunately, you can't really see it between the last few crises, that means 2008 financial crisis, SARS 1.0, and then the 911 situation, how the oil price move. Actually, oil price move is quite in tandem with SARS. This is quite different from the equity market. Right, the 1.0, SARS-CoV-2. So between the last SARS and this coronavirus, actually it limit people movement. That's why that will reduce the oil demand. That's why the oil price actually move quite in tandem. So looking forward, whether how far the oil price can go, beside the supply, beside the supply issue, the demand will really depends on the mobility of the people. And of course, how, if there is a second wave, how countries trying to contain the second wave. Now, the interesting part that I bring up scrap steel is because if you notice that scrap steel prices has spiked, has jumped up, so to speak. One of the reasons the economy indicator actually didn't really show that on the iron ore prices, because I think one of the major reasons the economy start to recover, but unfortunately is that there is still a lot of movement control where the mining company or even iron company can't really go into full production. That's why it relies a lot on the recycle of the scrap metal. But it just tells you that actually industry activity has started to come back. Okay, so knowing that, that's why I don't look at PMI or whatever at this moment. I think a few key indicators you need to look at. Actually, of course, one of the most important is the mobility. Then after that, other high frequency data like the consumer spending, number of hours that in US people are working, and all this will tell you, or even like China on the congestion index will tell you how fast or to what level the economy has recovered. So looking forward, of course, coronavirus people would think it's a black swan, but I think looking forward, from now onwards, not into the next month, I use the word dragon past and going into the
Hi, Mr. Phua. We cannot hear you now.
yeah.
Hi, Mr.
Okay.
Phua.
Yeah, the sound is off again.
Yeah, now it's okay already.
Unfortunately, I think you will see a declining in the productivity, which means that the cost may go up, inflation may go up, although deflation will be there for a while. Why declining productivity? Again, if we are in the with coronavirus world, social distancing has to be maintained, right? Whether in the office, in the factory, or outside, which means that office space productivity will drop, right? Because you need, like in the restaurant, normally you can sit 10 people, restaurant now becomes probably about 5 people. So actually, the revenue to the restaurant will decrease. This will mean the declining productivity, right? And then people will start become a little more cautious on that. That's why I call it debtophobia, because essentially, it tells you very well if your revenue of your income suddenly goes to zero, and if you still have some debt to service, depends. Of course, normally you have the savings, but it depends on how long this situation can happen, and if the government don't give moratorium, then you'll be in trouble. So that is another part, right? And then the deglobalization is very clear, because the supply chain issue has really, people learns a lot from this coronavirus time, because your supply, your manufacturing schedule get disrupted, like in Malaysia, some of them, they can't get orders because at the very early stage during May, even during March. So all to have 2 weeks MCO, then extend another 2 weeks, then extend another 2 weeks. So it makes that a lot of overseas companies can't give order to Malaysia because it's saying that I don't know when can you start to resume your operation. If I give you the order and say that, let's say I give you the order in end of March, and I say I want it by end of April, and yet Malaysia government will always extend 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. So when you cannot operate, I will get affected. So I can't give to you. Of course, the argument, that's why after that, the Malaysian government go back to the so-called conditional MCO, factories can operate and all this. But definitely deglobalization will be sped up, right? Trade, because on top of that, the US-China trade issue will still be an issue. So this is what the post or with coronavirus were. So when in terms of investment, this is how you have to look at the countries, right? Countries that can benefit from demography, countries that can benefit from deglobalization, right? Countries where most of the company have lower debt, right? And then these countries where they can offset the declining productivity, normally it's through IT. That's why you see that Nasdaq stocks is like going up like nobody business, right? So these are the countries that will benefit a lot. Okay, now, so looking into the second half, what are the immediate risks? One risk is actually US presidential election. Now, this risk, I'm not talking about whether Donald Trump will win or Joe Biden will win, right? If we talk about the coronavirus is not going to disappear, bearing in mind that both of them are above 70 years old, right? I mean, by Malaysia context, right? If they want to cut hair in the barber, they have to make reservation, right? They belong to the high risk group. So what I'm trying to say is that, can you imagine? I mean, I don't think everybody want to think about it. I mean, if it happens, then only we see it. I mean that.
Hi, Mr. Phua. Sorry for the interruption. We lost your line.
Will decide how to react, but
Sorry, Mr. Phua. Sorry for interruption. We lost your audio again. Hi, Mr. Phua. Hello, Mr. Phua. Can you hear me? Hi, Mr. Phua. Are you on the line?
can you hear me now?
Yes. Now can already. Just now we lost your audio.
Okay. So for the US presidential election, can you imagine? I mean, the market is, I don't think anyone want to think of it, and I think the market will react if that really happened. But can you imagine if, let's say, these two presidential candidates, technically, right, from now until November, during the election campaign, unfortunately, they are infected by coronavirus and habis, which means that there's no presidential candidate going into November 3rd. US will face first a constitutional crisis and a leadership crisis. What will happen to the world, nobody knows. But this one, frankly speaking, like I say, nobody wants to think about it. But having said that, it doesn't mean the risk is not there. So I mean, just be prepared when this happens. how bad the market will be, nobody knows. It's anybody guess, right? And of course, now you have the so-called protest, right? It's still ongoing, right? You have the so-called the Antifa camp and then the Boogaloo camp, right? Which are opposite to each other. And you can imagine what if these two, right, when they are together and out of control, because both also believe in violence, right? Both believe in violence and both are on the opposite camp. So you can imagine how bad it is and what will happen to the US or to certain state at that moment. What does that mean to the economy and what does that mean to the US market, right? This is something that, we have to keep an eye on that. At this moment, I say so far so good, touch wood, they don't have a head-on clash at this moment. Then, of course, you have the trade war issue, right? You have the trade war issue, which I will share with you later. And then the East Asia issue, you have seen some in India, but of course, at that one, China is not all out yet. And then you have the South China Sea issue, which you never know, right? It can become a full-blown crisis also. And then the Argentina contagion. This one we only know by tonight. So far, the market has ignored that. Officially, Argentina government debt has defaulted, right? But the creditors now are still negotiating so that it won't become, now it's a technical default. It won't become into a full default. And will this have contagion to a lot of the emerging countries is something that we don't know, but this is a risk, right? Which means that it can have a spillover into Turkey, even into India, Indonesia. This is something that we don't know. And of course, when it starts have this contagion to all these countries, and on top of the coronavirus, and in India, you have also the locust issue. How this is going to affect the whole Asia and even the world economy is something yet to see. But frankly speaking, very clear that at this moment, market is totally ignoring all these risks. But not to say that this risk won't happen, right? This risk, of course, trade war, I would say that it won't happen until after the election is over, the presidential election is over. Is Asia also possible? It won't happen because Donald Trump is not going to have, immediately a total break off from China, right? But Argentina contagion can be, something that can happen. Actually, we will know it by tonight. And then this US presidential, what happened if the two candidates, don't forget they are above 70s, is infected, and after that, they have to bid sayonara to the world, right? So these are the things that, market at this moment is totally ignored. And of course, if this happens, the second half economy also will be totally derailed, right? So technically, at this moment, of course, when we talk about the actual US presidential election, assuming that both of them are the candidates, right? Going into 3rd of November, it has happened, if you look at it since 1977, this chart also you may not be able to see it so clear. The red line is telling you that when the president is seeking for re-election, right, after in the office, in the first term, in the office after 1,100 days, from then onwards, if their approval rating fall below 50, none of them has been re-elected. Right, this is the red line. And Donald Trump currently is at this situation. So whether he can make a history or not, we don't know. But we based on what, since 1977, this is what it tells us, that no president will get re-elected if their approval rating falls below 50 after 1,100 days in office. So we all know that Donald Trump will definitely want to be re-elected. So that's why I say that the trade issue will not be a full-blown until the election is over. So I mean, this one, some of the chart you all may have seen it between the Donald Trump approval rating and the market. Now it has diverged. It has diverged. Market has already ignored all these Donald Trump factors. Now back to the trade issue. Like I say, it won't pop up until election is over. But frankly speaking, after election, it's irrelevant who is the president, be it Donald Trump or Joe Biden. I think they are going to be very tough on China, right? The chart, unfortunately, you can't really see it partially, but you can see between from 2000 and then 2017, a bit old. The world now, technically in terms of trades, right? You have three big blocks to a certain extent, and two big countries and one big block, which is EU, China, and US. Then the rest, all are reliant on that. Which even in between these three, also they are mutually dependent on each other. That's where Donald Trump, and after from the pandemic, you know that certain strategic goods, not necessary to be very sophisticated, right? It can be as simple as the face mask that you really need to manufacture, in your home country, right? And in terms of the business doing, also it will change from just in time, right? Cost saving into a just in case and resilience, and that means that, like I say, your productivity will drop because you will have to spend more to keep your inventory in case something happen, right? So the next slide, I'm not going to go into so detail so much because this is what Donald Trump has embarking on with China in terms of the coronavirus. Now he called it Kung Flu, and then on the trade and all this. But all this, technically, I would say that it's just for the sake of re-election because he need to create an enemy, right? And the most convenient enemy, or at least a virtual enemy, until election is China. Now, I mean, there are a lot of issues and all this. Of course, some he can do it because it's a little bit like wayang kulit. It doesn't impact so much. It's like the Huawei sanction, because if you look at it, US only supply a very small portion of parts to Huawei only. It's only 1% compared to Japan 33%, Korea 28%. So when they say they sanction on Huawei, it sounds great for him to gain support, but actually it doesn't really hurt the US economy. But on the other hand, you can see that he don't go really further beyond that, because when you look at the laptop and when you look at the smartphone, not Huawei phone, smartphone means Apple phone and all this, US actually rely on about, most of it also about 60 to 70% are from China. So that's why you see he doesn't make so much noise on that, right? And then on top of that, that's why I say he won't go a full-blown war with China at this moment, because US cannot afford to do that, right? Especially when you know that at this moment you still have a public health issues. Let's say if we don't use the word crisis, because a lot of key medicines actually are imported from China, right? 97% of the antibiotics are from China. 95% of ibuprofen, which is actually a sort of steroid for these skin diseases and all this. And then you can see that others also are quite significantly depends on China. So let's say if China say, sorry, since you want to quarrel with me, I'm not going to sell all this medicine to you. I think you have more Americans die of all this, the normal illness, than people die during the coronavirus. So, I mean, everything is just wayang kulit for Donald Trump at this moment. He won't go all out. But post-election may be a separate issue. So at this moment, because of that, in that context, you don't really have to worry that, all this trade issue will derail the economy, right? And of course, when we're going into the, what will drive technically with coronavirus or post-coronavirus, definitely is technology. That's very clear. And then the reshoring, that means countries that where they are near to where the end consumption countries should benefit, which does not necessarily mean Asian countries. It means more like Mexico, the North, mainly will be Mexico in America. Then Europe side, it may even partially benefit some of the Middle East country, right? And then, of course, I think a lot of government will have to rebuild their healthcare and medical system. So these are the sector that will benefit from it. And then, of course, resource-rich countries will still benefit because at the end of the day, you still need resource. But when you look at the short-term recovery, the interesting part is that I would say that Japan, US, France, and Germany are at more advantage because they have more so-called number of populations which is age 50 and above. Why this is important is because immediately after this reopen of the economy, job opportunity won't improve significantly, right? It will still be a gradual improvement. So a lot of countries will have to depend on domestic consumption. And country with more older people will be more able to spend because these people will rely on the pension. They have the money as compared to the younger generation where they still, the old people has the stocks, right? Has the stocks of the asset. Young people depends on the flow. So this country will be more advantage, and that's why we think that developed country, right, will have a faster recovery than the emerging countries. Because if you look at ASEAN country as a whole, Africa and all this, we have more younger generation. So to create new jobs will become more difficult, right? Whereas China and India, they are a little more neutral because of the huge population. Although they are not necessarily like the developed countries where you have more older people that have plenty of money that are able to spend. In fact, when you look at like US, Japan, and all this, when they reopen, actually it's more towards of the high-end consumption, right? Rather than of course, the low-end one is general, like your grocery and all this, you will still spend. But beyond that, it's like, people, although in US, it is more towards online, right? You are buying some luxury goods and all this, right? In the departmental store or what have you. Okay. So, the next thing is, so why the market moves so fast? Technically, it's because essentially is the risk factor, the R, that is actually keep on coming down because of the low interest rate. All the central banks that take concerted effort, right, to avoid the collapse of the financial system. But if you look at the actual earnings, it is still bad. But the market has already fully discounted on that for the actually until third quarter of this year, we don't expect earnings to improve. Excuse me. But on the other hand, you can see, again, you can't really see from the chart, the financial condition has improved because the year or the spread between the US Treasury and BBB has already narrowed back. Because at the peak, right, people were worried about financial system collapse where the spread increased. That tell you the market is at a high risk. But again, like I say, from now onwards, I will expect more volatility in the market. One reason is I'm not sure what the algo of program trading will look for the keywords, but in the past, coronavirus is one of the keywords that caused the volatility, right? Essentially, when you look at S&P and the volatility index, it has fallen below. Historically, the moment it falls below 40, actually it tells you that you're unlikely to see any sharp correction. If it can fall below 20, then it tells you that market will start be on the more sustainable uptrend. But now we know that it's still hovering around 30. That's why I expect more volatility. And actually, the long position is quite a lot in US. So anytime when they want to unwind, they can unwind very fast. Now, this chart, you can't really see the root cause because it's comparison between the financial crisis last round, where it is really a financial crisis that created by the property sector. During that situation, that's why, I mean, after things stabilize, the gold don't really outperform so much. But this round, you can see that on the lower part, the next slide, which is, you see the red color is gold, right? It has outperformed, and then a sort of purplish blue color that all the way up this NASDAQ is exactly like what we mentioned, because technology is the one that will drive the growth post-coronavirus. Then the rest are still a bit so-called struggling, so to speak. Unfortunately, the remaining charts, you can't really see it. Actually, if you look at the chart carefully, of course, S&P give a very typical example, but you look at others also, I mean, whether KLCI or Nikkei or whatsoever, also give you a very clear situation, in a sense that when after the when coronavirus becomes a major risk, the market actually collapsed, right? Then after that, it rebounded sharply. That part, technically, when the market comes down, is because of the worry of the credit crunch. Then after that, it rebounded when central bank take a concerted effort in reducing the interest rate, injecting liquidity, avoiding unnecessary default and all this, right? It rebounded. Then after that, the market stayed a little bit sideways, right? I mean, not a strong upward movement. It's because 1-2 weeks, the market start to back on the uptrend again. Actually, it's quite similar for most of the market, except NASDAQ, which is all the way up, technically, after the rebound. Now, the tricky part is that in terms of valuation-wise, that's why I expect the market to be very volatile from now onwards. I wouldn't expect a very big correction, but it can be very volatile. The swing can be big, but it's not a real downtrend all the way, unless coronavirus become totally out of control again. Now, if you look at it, a lot of markets actually are quite either close to fair value or already overvalued. Okay, how we get this fair valuation is we assume that even if the earnings forecast, the market consensus forecast before coronavirus, and after that it has revised down, and assume that the earnings can go back to the pre-coronavirus level, then that is where the market index will be, right? Like for S&P, right, fair value is 3,147, where last night we are at 3,131. Actually, it's very close. It's just slightly below, so I put it as fair value. But this is already on the assumption that the earnings can go back to the pre-coronavirus level, which is very, very challenging at this moment. So, I mean, the rest, you can't really see the chart. So I just talk about the fair value. This one is NASDAQ. NASDAQ, we look at the fair value, actually it's only 9,320. Of course, the slightly different in this context is that because technology is going to benefit quite a lot, so you may have upward earnings revision even stronger than the pre-coronavirus level. But if you assume that even for assume the earnings level, also the fair value is only 9,320, right? Of course, last night we know it closed above 10,000 already. Europe also, right? Europe is one of the region where the current value is still much lower than the fair value. One of the major reasons is the market has revised down the Europe earnings by 38%, whereas in US for Dow Jones, for NASDAQ, the downward revision is only 28%. So that's why, because there's a sharp revision, and in fact, the initial V recovery is not that bad. So that's why you still see some rooms for European market. For Japan, technically, it's also a little bit overvalued already. I mean, for Nikkei, for those who want to trade on the futures and all this, just keep an eye on that, because all this, remember, is on the assumption that the earnings can go back to the pre-coronavirus forecast, where pre-coronavirus people are still talking there's growth, in 2020. Just bear this in mind. And this one is Asia x Japan, so technically also is overvalued. Then if we look at CI, we are also just marginally undervalued, but it's also not much already. And bear in mind that normally, I mean, the earnings for the revision on Malaysia market is always revised downwards compared to the beginning of the year. So this is another factor that you have to factor in. But all in all, this is assumed, again, like I say, I have to repeat again, it's assuming that the earnings can go back to the pre-coronavirus forecast, right? Even then, the valuation is not that far away. Okay. So gold price, I think, like I mentioned, it is actually more towards on the such situation where it has already has already outperformed, and you see some limited upside on the gold price already. Okay, so really apologize that the format all get messed up, that you can't really see the slide. With this, I will end my presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Phua. Thank you for your sharing. So now is our Q&A section. Okay, so there are a few questions here, Mr. Phua. Okay, for the first is, KLCI has increased significantly from 1,200 to 1,500. It is a market due to the correction soon?
Okay, like what I have said, if you look at the valuation, actually it's already fully valued. So put it, but also bear in mind, just now I've never mentioned, because all the central banks, right, and the government are injecting liquidity into the financial system. So this excess liquidity, money has nowhere to go, right? They have to go somewhere. Right? Part of it will always go to the equity market. That's the reason why market have moved so fast up. But again, to further move the market up, you really need a very strong recovery, right? Which is, I mean, like I say, it's real V-shaped recovery, which I don't really at this moment consider is very likely. My one is V halfway, then after that, it becomes so-called, you have an inflection that it moves up slowly, right? So in that situation, anytime any good excuses, right, whether worry of a second wave or when a little bit concerned about US-China trade, although I don't think that there will be a full-blown trade war before presidential election, some or even the protest may be a bit out of control or whatever, then they will take this as a convenient excuse to take profit, so to speak, right? So you can expect a volatility, and the quantum of correction, of course, I don't expect it to fall down to, let's say, even like for CI, to fall down to 1,003 also is not that likely, unless like say the second wave is out of control. But within that, just a convenient excuse to take profit and all this, I think it's like what you see, it will hovering between around 1,500 to it won't touch 1,600 lah, but I mean around 1,500 to 1,070 range, it will be just hovering there lah.
Okay, one more last question, Mr. Phua. What is the consequence if China stock like Alibaba are forced to be delisted from US market? What is the possibility of this happening?
Actually, Alibaba already have a listing in Hong Kong. So, I mean, put it this way, unless you are an investor that invests in Alibaba in US, right? Actually, you can invest in Hong Kong also, right? If you invest in US, of course, frankly speaking, if you invested in US, you may want to switch it over to Hong Kong. But again, if you ask me, if this happens, actually it gives you an opportunity to arbitrage.
Sorry, Mr. Phua, we can
For
hear you.
those who are good during Asian financial. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, now can already.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yes, now can.
Okay. I mean, I would say that if Alibaba is delisted in US, actually it provides an arbitrage opportunity lah. But of course it depends on how the regulators going to handle it. I mean, being arbitrage also is a high risk lah. But what I'm saying is that it will be like something like the during the Asian crisis, right? Between our Malaysian share in KL and then in Singapore, the club shares, right? Remember, the Alibaba share in US will collapse. So if you accumulate the shares, later they allow you to release or they allow the share to release or release it into Hong Kong, you should be able to earn an arbitrage. But if you have a shares now in US, I would say it's better to switch from US, go to Hong Kong because this is likely to happen because this one doesn't harm America so much when Donald Trump need to have some wayang kulit for his presidential election. This is one of the least painful thing because he already won the pension fund and all this. Normally, institutional investors are not that stupid. They'll know when to get out.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Phua. So that's all for our webinar tonight. Due to time constraint, we have to stop now. Okay, so very apologize to the technical issue. We will post the recorded version on our YouTube channel. Okay, if you have question, okay, you can email to our email. Okay, so and we'll try to revert it as soon as possible. Okay, so please fill out the webinar feedback form. Hope today's webinar will share you something. Good night and bye-bye. Thank you, Mr. Phua.
Thank you.